Welcome to today's Destination Unknown. I'm your host, Alyssa Hall. Today we're filming in my kitchen. It's a little different here, and I have had some changes in my life this past week. They've left some empty spaces, which I'm trying to fill with new opportunities. So here we are, a little change of pace, and it seemed appropriate to be filming in here today because today we're talking about something that I put in the description of this podcast way back in November when I was first thinking about it in 2020. And I said, whether you were reading tarot or tea leaves, and we've talked about tarot nonstop, but today is our day to talk about one of my other obsessions. Anyone who knows me in real life knows that tea is really one of my obsessions. I drink about 3 to 7 cups a day every single day of my life and have for probably the last 13 or 14 years. I can think of that solid as just being a constant in and out, summer or winter. That's my habit. But reading tea leaves is a little different because I typically drink my tea and have it in a tea bag, the same as we all do. So let's go back in time a little. Have some tea with me if you like today. Feel free to pause me and go make some. What you're going to look for, if you have anything around, I've got some, this is jasmine tea. You need loose leaf tea. So where I usually drink out of tea bags all the time, today the loose leaf tea that we are really messing with, see if I can show the camera that, and I'll put some in or here. So you can really get an idea that this is a long cut, is what they call that. So it's got some length to the leaves themselves. If I try to hold them against the white of my robe while I was getting ready today, it seemed like the right thing to do, just to come in here and read some tea leaves for today instead of what I normally do. So here we are. So those are tea leaves that I'm working with, some old jasmine tea. That's a loose, long cut leaf tea, which is great for what we're trying to do. I poured myself my tea and I've had it cooling so that I could try to sip it while we talk today. And then hopefully I'll get to the bottom of this cup and be able to try to read my tea leaves. It's not a practice that I usually do. So this is another one of those demos that I've been having a lot of fun with here on the podcast. So let's get started. Today, talking about the tea leaves, it actually has its own name. It's called tasseography or tasseomancy. Those are the words. That's the official word for it. So tasseography is the one that I came across the most when I was doing research about tea leaf reading. And I went to a couple sites like TUSA.com was a helpful one. There was another one over at the republicoftea.com that had some information tucked away about tea leaf reading. So there's some cool sources out there besides just your wiki if you want to go looking for yourself. But one of the first things they talk about is the ritual of pouring the tea. And of course, I always hear tea ritual and I think of the Japanese tea rituals. But they were talking about just that you want to have some mindfulness. So because I'm talking my way through my cup here, I don't know that I'm as focused as I should be, but we'll try it. So today I'll see if I can tip the camera and the cup. If you can see, I have right there. This is so tricky. There's my tea, you get it. So my tea has some loose tea leaves floating in the bottom. It's been steeping now for, a couple minutes for sure. So I'm gonna just start drinking here while we talk about tea leaf reading so I can actually do one, like we said. I get a lot of leaves in my mouth when I drink loose leaf tea, which is yet another reason that I'm not very fond of loose leaf tea just thrown in the cup like this. Gross, right? Like, am I going to be picking out tea leaves this entire podcast? I just got to go with it if I am. Okay, so let's talk about tasseomancy. So the ritual itself, we were just talking about, you want to put in a big generous pinch of your loose leaf tea. Given the color of my tea right now, this is old tea, so that's on me. But this tea is barely real tea, if you ask me as a tea connoisseur. This is colored water, but it kind of tastes like something. So I'm just going to keep going ahead. Anyway, all right, so you put your pinch of tea in there, you pour your nice hot boiling water or real hot water on top, give it a few minutes to steep and sit, which I did. I've got Huckleberry here in the background trying to help me with my tea leaf reading today, in case you hear or see any of her. I doubt you'll see her. She has to be flying. And so let's talk some more about the cup itself. The cup is the next thing to look at. So you have the ritual where you've prepared your cup, and then after you pour that water, like we just said, you want to give it some mindfulness. This is my day today. I'm going to pause you. Okay, that was FedEx. That was a delivery. We'll see if we can pick this up and keep it going. All right, so we just talked about the ritual. You put all the stuff in. What I hadn't gotten a chance to talk to yet, which is exactly what I'm not doing yet for this reading, is giving it some mindfulness and some focus. So the idea is if there's something you're curious about, just the same way if you were doing a tarot reading, you would ask your sitter to please be aware and focus on the reading and not to just tune out and passively accept it. The same goes with the reading here. So you want to give some focus to whatever it is you're thinking about or trying to gain clarity, and drink your tea while you do. But for us, we'll gain clarity by talking more about tea leaf reading. So, fabulous. So moving forward, we then want to talk about the cup itself. And I thought this was interesting. I didn't really know this until I started going into tea leaf reading, because I understood that the tea leaf reading is just another form of divination. We use that word here a lot on the podcast. Divination is anytime you are talking to or conversing with the divine, however you perceive that force to be. And so when we use divination as a way of gaining information for ourselves, we're communing with that internal source, and we're often using symbols. We use symbols a lot, and we talk about symbols, how you should get familiar with your own symbols when using tarot, as well as with the traditional meanings to some of the symbols that we've been studying in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. But today, tea leaf reading really is kind of Cartomancy 201, not 101. And the reason I say that is because you kind of have to start stretching yourself. It's a little bit like scrying crystals. We've talked a little bit about crystal scrying in the crystals talks earlier this year, but scrying and divinating, anytime what you're doing is you're looking for these patterns, shapes, and symbols for them to come forward in your reading for yourself. I keep looking down at my cup right now, but you guys, seriously, at my cup, like I was showing you before, it literally is just like, gosh, I'm going to figure this out. I really am. See that? It's just like a big mess of leaves right now. So I'm really hopeful that today's demonstration is at all helpful. Let's find out. So, okay, the cup. The handle itself is thought to represent the sitter or the person that you're reading for. If it's not, it's the person who's drinking the cup of tea, obviously, because it orients itself to you. I'm right-handed, so I drink tea out of my right hand. But when we get here in a minute to the reading, they say to switch to the left. So I'll do that just to try it, but it seems kind of weird. Now then, as you're holding the teacup, when you're reading it, you imagine that the rim, the top part, so if I was facing you, the rim that's facing, let's do it sideways. So the rim that's facing away is considered to be the present. So the handle is you as the sitter. This is the present. The sides of the cup, including the handle, is thought to be representative of the not so distant future, so the very near future. And then the far future is going to be the bottom of your cup as you're reading it. So if I was holding my cup to the side, the bottom would be here and the top would be there. Okay, so there's some orientation. When I was reading that reminded me of like spread positions almost. It gives you an idea of what do I do with this symbol in order to give it some context within this reading to try to bring a narrative together. This tea is getting stronger towards the bottom. I'm almost to the bottom of my cup and still swirling. It also tastes very bitter. I added nothing to it. Normally I drink my tea with milk and sugar. So for me to have a very plain herbal tea is a very different tea experience for me today, shall we say. All right, moving forward. So that's what the cup itself is supposed to mean. And then after that, what you're going to do when we get to the reading itself is look for symbols inside the cup. So what kind of symbols might you see? Definitely letters. They tell you to look for that predominantly. Which way do you orient the cup? Well, we're going to orient it in every way. Let me see. I'm almost done with my cup here. I think I'm almost there. Hang on. It tastes like tea made from grass clippings at this point. You have no idea how nasty this tastes. All right, but we're really close to the bottom. And you want to get really close to the bottom, but leave a little liquid, is what they say, in the cup itself. So that's what I'm trying for. It tastes like spinach water right now, you guys. It's not good. This is old tea, and I'm not enjoying this. I hope that doesn't show up in my reading, but I'm just transparency. Okay, I'm finally down to the bottom of this cup. Thank you, God. I'm supposed to switch to the left hand, swirl 3 times. Good Lord, did I swirl? I just swashed some on me. Swirl 1, 2, 3, and then I've got a teacup or a saucer, invert it. And I got the saucer because obviously it's going to catch all the drips. You invert it, and then I'm going to pick it up from the right because I'm right-handed. And they showed pictures of the right. Okay. All right. I mean, I do actually kind of see some symbols jumping out at me from the ones that they talked about. So I'll show you the cup here in a second. But I noticed for myself, the same as happens, I experienced the same thing as when I first turn over a tarot card and I know I'm in reading mode and I'm immediately looking for a message. Like what I'm about to see, I receive and wait for a message. So I had that kind of openness as I turned the cup over just now to show you in the moment. And a couple symbols did pop at me right away. I hope I don't have any tea in my teeth. That would be gross. Okay. So symbols that we're looking for, you're looking for groupings and or solitary symbols, whether or not there's a story that's happening with a group of symbols or if it's just its own symbol on its own, where it is in the cup, which we talked about. They said to take your time and to examine it from different angles, that you might see a different symbol, of course, as you orient the cup a little differently, which I'm trying to do now. So you might see letters. Animals are another symbol often of good omens or bad omens when you're doing tea leaf reading. You also might be looking for like icons or little pictures. They're almost like emojis, right? Like if you see a palm tree or an airplane or some sort of like little pictorial image or icon that can be symbolic as well. Dots, little tiny dots, are thought to represent money. That makes total sense to me because that goes back to some of the pictorial stuff that I've learned through making mandalas. And in fact, I have pictorial magic coming up later. We're going to get into some of the subjects of pictorial magic and veves from voodoo, but not until October. We got a little while. Anyway, back to the here and now and my cup that I'm going to show you also in just a second. So what else am I looking for? Lines, they say, will represent a journey. So if the line itself is near the cup, near the sitter, then that's one, they might be coming back from a journey or having completed a journey. If it's a long line, that's a long journey. Multiple broken lines are thought to be trouble along the way as you're traveling in your journey, but that it's a journey, but it's got a lot of stops and starts. That makes sense. So that's another thing I'm looking for. The last thing I wrote down as a symbol that they supplied, which I'll take it, they say triangles mean good fortune. I get that because triangles in palmistry mean money. So that again corresponds with some of my own iconography, my own symbols. So now having said all of the kind of things that I'm looking for, what did I see the minute I popped it over? Well, let's take a look together. So here's my, oh shoot, I just dumped a bunch of tea right on top of my journal. Oh my gosh. All right, it's cool. It's that day today. Let's tip it again, and this time as it pours out any last liquid like that, we're cool. Oh my gosh, we got to get going. Okay, so I saw kind of a heart right here in this shape. I also saw a distinct line, I guess, or even almost a crescent, very near the handle. There was a lot of stuff near the handle side in general that just, I don't know what those look like. That kind of looks like a musical note to me, especially when it's not reversed. I see another heart. I swear I just keep seeing hearts in my cup, which is great. I love that. And then I just see the big, massive old blob in the bottom. So whatever that means. So let's talk about it. So, okay, if I were trying, and they tell you when you're tea leaf reading, the same as you want to be able to get to the end of a tarot reading and tie the cards together, give some continuity and narrative to the reading. That's what I'm looking to do here, but let's be honest, I don't know what I'm doing. So I kind of have a heart up here on the present, which makes sense. Surrounded by love right now, feeling very close to my family. I've had some loss this week. I don't necessarily see that. Kind of looks like a dog right here though. And I just had to put my dog down this weekend. So, but this kind of, I don't know if I can, now where'd it go? Right here. This one looked kind of like a dog to me. A lot of these kind of look like hearts. Like I said, the one that's near my cup, and then some more that up here kind of looked heart-like. So I think there's a lot of love surrounding me right now. And I definitely, maybe the dog, because it's also in a position that shows the far future, it's more towards the bottom rim of the cup. Maybe that's a way of saying there'll be another dog coming into my life. I'm definitely open to more dogs someday in the future. And then they say, what do you do about the big blob in the back? I don't know. They didn't really have a lot of great, oh my God, look you guys, that almost makes a gigantic heart. What? I had to see it in the camera to see it. Do you see? It's a gigantic heart also. Okay, I needed this tea reading today because my heart is dealing with a lot of loss. I'm surrounded by love is what I get out of this. Wow. Wow. So yeah, there was meaning to the blob, and it hit me all at once, and it gave me an emotional reaction. So I'm going to take that as my reading today. It's probably what I really needed to hear, as you can tell from the emotional reaction that I'm trying to have and not have on camera all at the same time. So last thing I'll tell you about reading tea leaves. How long's it been going on? Well, a really long time. We can't really know. But we know that over in England, it became popular in the 1600s. That's when it started first really gaining kind of a popular thing to do for the ladies more often, having parlor into the 17th and 18th century. It became even more practice as a form of fun and divination all at the same time. We do know that there was one book, the very first book that was written about it was called Reading Tea Leaves. It was published in 1881 anonymously by someone called a Highland seer. So it must have been someone up in the Scottish, perhaps, or with some Scottish background, who also fancied themselves a reader. So get yourself some tea, I guess, and see what hidden messages you might find in the bottom of your cup. Might bring you something you needed to hear. I needed that today. I'll take that message. And thanks for joining me. As always, keep listening.